Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the fascinating and, let's be real, sometimes totally terrifying microscopic world of illnesses. And we're doing something a little different. We've got this incredibly clear, handwritten set of scientific notes, and we're going to use them as a roadmap to decode exactly how these invisible invaders crash our party. So, let's kick things off with the absolute simplest, most relatable definition from the notes. At its core, before we even touch the heavy science, a disease is simply being uncomfortable. Think about the literal word for a second, dis-ease. It's literally the absence of ease. You know, that initial tickle in your throat, that sudden crash of fatigue. That is your body's early warning system saying, hey, something's not right here. Now, stepping just a bit beyond that initial discomfort, our notes give us the actual scientific definition. A disease is a condition where our bodies are actively affected and, well, they just stop performing their normal functions. It's way more than just feeling a bit under the weather. It's a full-on systemic disruption. Basically, the incredibly complex biological machine that is your body has thrown a gear and normal operations are totally suspended. Which brings us to Section 1. Meet the pathogens, the microscopic suspects. Okay, so what exactly is a pathogen? Our source material nails it. It's a disease-causing microorganism. These are the literal invisible agents behind that uncomfortable feeling we were just talking about. They're tiny, they're incredibly determined, and honestly, they just have one single goal: to use your body to survive and multiply. And here is the official lineup, the 5 primary microscopic suspects. We're looking at bacteria, viruses, protozoa, algae, and worms, and fungi. This right here is basically the rogues gallery of infectious biology. Anytime you catch a bug, you can almost guarantee one of these 5 groups is to blame. You know, what's really cool about looking at these authentic handwritten notes is seeing the pure laser focus on disease and their type. The author has meticulously taken this massive, chaotic world of human illness and broken it down into a super clean, easy-to-understand hierarchy. It's just a fantastic visual of how scientists organize absolute chaos into neat, understandable categories. Moving right along to Section 2, their MO, or how the invaders operate. So this right here is the primary divide in disease types. It's the grand fork in the road. Over on the left, we've got communicable diseases. Think of these as the social invaders. These are caused by pathogens that specifically use us to spread from one person to another. Then, on the right, we have non-communicable diseases. Now, these can still be incredibly dangerous, but they're isolated events. They do not spread from person to person. Just take a look at this list for a second. Influenza, the common cold, TB, typhoid, cholera, all the way up to COVID-19. For the rest of this explainer, we're going to focus entirely on these communicable diseases. We really want to zero in on the ones that actively travel between hosts, simply because their entire survival strategy relies on being able to jump ship and move to the next person. All right, Section 3, airborne invaders. Traveling on a sneeze. Notice anything repeating in that final column? Yeah. Whether it's a virus that causes the flu, the common cold, or COVID-19, or a bacterium causing tuberculosis, they all rely on one favorite launchpad: sneezing. Someone gets infected, they sneeze, and boom, they've just atomized those pathogens into microscopic droplets. It literally turns the air around them into a temporary minefield for anyone else who happens to take a breath. Looking right at the second page of our notes, you can actually trace the direct line. It goes from the disease itself, right down to the pathogen type, and finally it's all bracketed together by that specific airborne action that launches the invasion. It's such a beautifully simple mapping of cause, culprit, and delivery system. Now for Section 4, food, water, and vectors. Let's look at their alternate routes of invasion. Because let's face it, pathogens are incredibly resourceful. Here we see a much stealthier approach. Specific bacteria and viruses essentially hijack our most basic resources, our food and our water. We're talking Salmonella bacteria causing typhoid, Vibrio bacteria causing cholera, and the hepatitis virus causing Hep A. They don't even need a sneeze. They just wait patiently in contaminated resources for us to willingly drink or eat them. Sneaky, right? And that brings us to a truly fascinating concept detailed in the source material, the vector. So what is a vector? It's basically a transport for a pathogen, usually an insect. I like to think of a vector as biological public transit. Since the pathogen can't fly, it can't walk, and maybe it isn't in your water, it just hitches a ride on a creature that already has direct access to your bloodstream. Let's track how this works in real life. Step 1, we have the pathogen. Let's say the dengue virus. On its own, it can't easily cross a room to get to you. But in step 2, it gets inside a highly specific vehicle, the female Aedes aegypti mosquito. This mosquito basically acts as a flying syringe. It totally bypasses our external defenses, injecting the virus directly into us, which leads right to step 3, human infection. Malaria operates on that exact same transit principle, but with a totally different cast of characters. As the notes show, malaria requires a specific protozoa called Plasmodium, and that protozoa uses a completely different transport vehicle, the female Anopheles mosquito, to finish its journey and cause a really devastating malaria infection in the human host. It's basically a highly specialized parasitic relay race. So if we take a step back and look at both pages side by side, we can really visualize this whole microscopic ecosystem. It's a total masterclass in understanding diseases and their type. We've traveled all the way from the broad, simple concept of being uncomfortable down to the super complex, specialized transport networks these pathogens use, from sneezes to our water supply, right to the wings of a tiny mosquito. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly important thought for you to take away today. We share our physical world with countless invisible invaders, and their sole biological purpose is to spread. But knowing exactly how they travel, that is our absolute best defense. So armed with this brand new map of their transit systems, what specific steps will you take to block their path today?